Hi, and welcome back to True Crime Revealed. Today's story is going to be in the tropical, beautiful island of Hawaii. The story is not as beautiful as the island, though. It is about Ivanice Harris. She was on a trip on vacation with her pimp and one of her best friends who was also a prostitute, and she was actually murdered by a U.S. Marine. And it's a very tragic, sad story. I saw it recently on Investigation Discovery, See No Evil, and I thought it was a very intriguing story just because it was a young, beautiful woman that was going on vacation to a tropical paradise in attempts to make money, and unfortunately, her life was cut short. So today's story is going to be about Ivanice Harris. She went by Ivy. You may or may not have heard about this story, but I hope that you learned something new today in the story about the murder of Ivanice Harris. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to True Crime Revealed. Today's story is a murder in paradise. It is about the murder of Ivanice Harris, who was celebrating her 29th birthday in Hawaii when she unfortunately was murdered. Now, she had gone to Hawaii with two other people. They were sort of in a love triangle. It was a really good friend of hers. Her friend's name was Jill Gibbities, and her boyfriend was Mark Miles Jr. Now, the three of them were actually involved in a love triangle, if you will. The two women were actually both messing with Mark, and he was essentially their pimp. And they had traveled to Hawaii to celebrate Ivanice's 29th birthday. Now, they had gone to Hawaii the year prior to celebrate Jill's 30th birthday, so it was kind of like an annual tradition each year they would go to celebrate the birthdays there. Or if they just wanted to travel, that's what they would do. And unfortunately, this will be the last vacation that Ivy would be taking. Ivy was born in May of 1984, and after finishing high school in 2001, she enrolled at Mount Hood Community College in Oregon. She actually had plans to move in with her mother and to concentrate on her studies, and she was described as a lively 28-year-old who had an awesome sense of humor and just really loved to have fun. Ivy was last seen in the early hours of May 16th, 2003, and she was actually talking to a man outside of a bar in Waikiki, Hawaii. Ivanice left the hotel and she told Jill and her boyfriend Miles that she was going to be leaving to go work outside of Kelly O'Neill's bar. Kelly O'Neill's bar is a popular tourist bar location that a lot of tourists like to go to in Waikiki, Hawaii, and essentially Ivy thought that this would be a great place for her to go make some money. Unfortunately, she went by herself because Jill was taking a long time to get ready, so it left her vulnerable to be outside by herself, and she is seen just kind of lurking outside of the bar, just attempting to get prospects outside of the bar in Waikiki. Ivy can be seen standing outside Kelly O'Neill's bar, saying hi to different guys, giving them high fives, and she did this for a while outside of the bar before her murderer appears and appears to be doing the same thing, giving her high fives, laughing, joking, flirting, before the two of them decide to walk off together, and they end up going to the Aston Hotel, which will be the last place that she will be seen alive. So remember, Ivy had traveled from Las Vegas with Jill and Mark Miles to prospect for work in wanting to get some money from prostitution. So she texted Miles and Jill and let them know that she was headed to the Aston Hotel so that they could know where she was in case of anything. So she didn't, of course, suspect that anything was going to happen, but that's just kind of what she did to let her boyfriend and Jill know where she was just in case of anything. And so that was the last text message that she sent out. So, in this surveillance footage, you can see Ivanice and her murderer outside of Kelly O'Neill's bar walking together in attempts to go to the hotel so that they can have an evening together. So Ivy and her murder wind up back at the Aston Hotel. And as you can see in this surveillance footage, they are waiting for the elevator to go back up to the room to do the deed. And in the hotel elevator, they can be seen just pretty chummy. As they're walking to the elevator, they're holding each other's hands. They go into the elevator and they start kissing and just getting really cozy, all before they end up going back to the room. And eventually, as you know, she goes missing. So this was the last moments that Ivy can be seen on camera before ultimately disappearing, and Mark and Jill reporting her as missing the next day. So Jill had actually gone out to find work the prior night as well, and she returned to the hotel that morning with Mark at the hotel, and she asks, "Hey, where's Ivy? Have you heard from her?" And he's like, "No, I thought you heard from her." So they both realize at that point that Ivy is missing and that something is very wrong because she has not called, she hasn't texted, and she's not back at the hotel, and that's definitely not like her. So that is when they decided to contact the authorities to report her as missing and see eventually what happened to her. Mark Miles and Jillian end up calling the police at the Honolulu Police Department and reporting Ivy as missing, and they begin the investigation immediately. Now, CT surveillance footage in this case was absolutely critical to tracking down her murderer, from standing outside Kelly O'Neill's bar to their interactions in the actual hotel elevator to him trying to dispose of her body. It basically is what essentially cracked the case for the murder of Ivanice Harris. You may be wondering who this monster is that is responsible for murdering Ivanice Harris and ultimately claiming her life. And it was none other than Master Sergeant Nathaniel Crosby. Now, he was actually a U.S. Marine deployed in Japan, but he was on a temporary assignment in Hawaii around the time of the murder. Thanks to video surveillance footage at the bar and the hotel, the Honolulu Police Department was actually able to track down Nathaniel as being the last person to be seen with Ivanice when she was alive. Nathaniel was 38 years old and he was actually married and had 4 children. And Honolulu Police Department had to actually wait for him to return from China because after he had checked out of the hotel, killed her essentially, he had to go back to China for an assignment. And so they had to actually work with the Marines to make sure that he was able to be brought back so that he could be formally charged. So this did take some time for them during their investigations, but they were able to actually bring him back from China to officially charge him. Honolulu police were able to work with the hotel in accessing the surveillance footage, and the footage that you're watching right now is of Nathaniel actually trying to dress in a disguise. He has on a hat with the tag still attached to it, and he's basically bringing out a suitcase from the hotel pretty early in the morning. So this was a few hours after he and Ivanice had spent the evening together, and he can be seen on video here trying to go ahead and put the suitcase in the trunk of his vehicle. And as you can see, he's kind of struggling while putting it into the back of the vehicle because it's very, very heavy. The bellhopper is trying to help him in seeing if he needs help putting it in the vehicle, and he essentially says no. Now, like most killers, Nathaniel wants to clean up his dirt, and he is a liar. So when authorities come and question him in an interview, they ask him, what happened? You're the last one that saw Ivanice. We've got you on camera. He admits it. He's like, yeah, we decided that we were going to spend the night together. She was a cool girl. Yeah, I saw her outside of O'Neill's bar. But the next morning when I woke up at the hotel, she was gone. So essentially, that is what he told investigators. And they knew that they had phone records actually showing that his cell phone actually pinged from a tower near where Ivanice's body was found. Ivanice's body was actually found in Waianae, Hawaii, about 4 days after she went missing. And her body was actually nude, and it was found in a brush by a beach part in Waianae, Hawaii. Now, this was about a 50-minute drive from where she was last seen at the Aston Hotel. And investigators did, in fact, know that it was Nathaniel that actually put the body there and that he was responsible for the murder. At the time of finding her body, the medical examiner could only confirm that she died due to an injury up with her neck, but it was later discovered that Nathaniel did, in fact, strangle her to death. Nathaniel lied to authorities and claimed that he had been drinking for 10 hours straight that night. And when it was time for them to go to the hotel, he states that his memory was kind of hazy, but he claimed that he woke up to Ivanice, who had a knife at him, and that he began choking her in self defense. There are other sources that say that he was basically trying to put her out without paying, and that's how the argument ensued. Either way, he was responsible for choking this young woman to death. Nathaniel can be seen in this photo covering his face as authorities are taking him in to be questioned, and just the audacity of him trying to cover his face. No, Nathaniel, we're going to expose you in all of the pictures of the dirt that you've done. You had no problem taking away someone's daughter, someone's friend, and you deserve to be exposed for the monster that you are. This story actually did end in justice. In April of 2014, a military jury convicted Nathaniel of murder while engaging in an inherently dangerous act. He was also charged with obstruction of justice and patronizing a sex worker. His defense was unsuccessful in trying to argue a case of self-defense, and he was later sentenced to life in prison. Now, we know these killers a lot of times want to do the crime, but they don't want to do the time. So, of course, in 2015, Nathaniel did appeal his conviction. However, thankfully, the military court did reject it, and he is still serving his sentence out currently at the military prison facility. So, that is the story today, guys. Murder in Paris, the unfortunate, untimely death of Ivanice Ivy Harris. There was justice. I'm happy to tell you that he was, in fact, charged and he is serving out a life sentence. However, that will not bring her back. Ivy is survived by her family and friends who loved her. Her boyfriend, Mark Miles, actually started a nonprofit organization in her honor called Ivy's Angels. So they are trying to keep her memory alive. However, it is just sad and unfortunate her untimely death. I hope that you guys learned something new today in this particular case. And as usual, if you like the video, please like, comment, and subscribe.